Dr. Lisa Carter rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. The green lines on the monitor were dancing in patterns she had never seen before. For 12 years, she had been listening to space at the Radio Telescope Center in Puerto Rico. She knew what normal space sounds looked like. This was not normal. The signal had started 3 hours ago at exactly 2:47 in the morning. Lisa was working the night shift alone, drinking her 4th cup of coffee and thinking about going home to her cat when the computer started beeping. At first, she thought it was just another satellite or maybe interference from a passing airplane. But as she studied the data, her heart began to beat faster. The pattern was too clean, too organized. It repeated every 37 seconds with mathematical precision. No natural object in space could make signals like this. Lisa picked up her phone and called her supervisor. "Dr. Rodriguez, you need to come in right now," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "I think we have something." 20 minutes later, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez was standing behind Lisa, staring at the same dancing lines. He was a careful man who had spent his career being skeptical of unusual signals. Most turned out to be human-made junk or equipment problems. But this signal was different. "Have you checked for interference?" he asked. "Yes, 3 times. I also checked the equipment. Everything is working fine." Dr. Rodriguez pulled out his phone and started making calls. Within an hour, the small control room was filled with scientists and military officials. Everyone was talking at once, pointing at screens and arguing about what the signal could mean. Then, at exactly 6:15 in the morning, everything changed. Lisa was explaining the signal pattern to a general when her computer screen went completely white. The beeping stopped. Every person in the room fell silent and stared at the monitor. Slowly, words began to appear on the screen in perfect English. "People of Earth, do not be afraid. We come in peace. Look to your sky." Lisa ran outside with everyone else. The morning sun was rising over the ocean, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. But there was something else in the sky now. Something that made Lisa's mouth fall open in shock. Floating high above the earth were ships. Not small ships like in the movies, but massive structures that looked like they were made of crystal and metal. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The sunlight hit their surfaces and broke into rainbow colors that danced across the clouds. There were 12 ships in total, arranged in a perfect circle around the planet. Each one was at least 2 miles long and sparkled like a giant diamond. They moved slowly and silently, taking positions above different parts of the world. Lisa's phone started ringing. Everyone's phone started ringing. The world had seen the ships too. Commander Jake Sullivan was eating breakfast with his family when the emergency alert came through. As the head of Space Force operations at Peterson Air Force Base, he was used to getting called in during crises. But when he saw the images streaming in from around the world, he knew this was unlike anything he had ever dealt with. The aliens had positioned their ships over major continents. One hovered over North America, another over Europe, and others over Asia, Africa, and South America. They maintained a perfect distance from Earth, close enough to be clearly visible but far enough away to avoid any immediate threat. Within 2 hours of their arrival, the ships began broadcasting on every radio and television frequency on Earth. The voice that spoke was calm and pleasant, like a friendly teacher talking to children. "People of Earth, we are the Cathara. We have traveled far across the galaxy to reach you. We come not as conquerors but as protectors. Your world is in great danger." Jake stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing the alien ships from every angle. Military bases around the world were reporting the same thing. The ships were not hostile, but they were clearly far more advanced than anything humans had ever built. "What kind of danger?" Jake asked the screen, even though he knew it could not answer him. As if reading his mind, the alien voice continued. "There are things in the darkness between stars that hunt worlds like yours. They are called the Devourers. They consume entire civilizations, leaving nothing behind but empty planets. We have seen them destroy dozens of worlds. They are coming for Earth." The broadcast showed holographic images that appeared in the sky above major cities. The images showed beautiful planets covered in cities and forests. Then the images changed. showing the same planets as lifeless rocks floating in space. Nothing remained of the civilizations that had once lived there. We have the power to hide your world from them. We will build a shield around Earth that will make it invisible to the devourers, but we must act quickly. They will arrive in your solar system within 1 year. President Helen Brooks sat in the Oval Office, surrounded by her top advisors. She had been president for 3 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Through the windows, she could see people gathering on the White House lawn, pointing up at the alien ship that hovered motionless above Washington, D.C. "What do we know about them?" she asked General Patterson, her military advisor. "Very little, Madam President. They appeared without warning. Our satellites detected no approach. They simply materialized in our orbit, as if they had always been there. Are they telling the truth about this threat? We have no way to verify their claims, but their technology is clearly far beyond ours. If they wanted to harm us, they probably could have done so already." The president looked out the window again. The alien ship cast a shadow over the capital city, but people did not seem afraid. Many were taking pictures and videos. Children pointed excitedly at the rainbow colors that danced across the ship's surface. "Set up a direct communication line," she ordered. "I want to speak with them." Dr. Lisa Carter had not slept in 36 hours. She and her team were working around the clock to understand the alien signals. The Cathara had provided them with translation software that let humans communicate directly with their ships. The alien technology was amazing. It could translate human thoughts into their language and their language into human thoughts. But something about the translations bothered Lisa. The words were always just a little bit wrong, as if the aliens did not quite understand what humans meant when they spoke. Dr. Alex Morgan, a language expert from Harvard University, had joined Lisa's team. He was studying the way the Cathara communicated, looking for clues about their true intentions. "There's something strange about their language structure," Alex told Lisa as they worked late into the night. "They use words that suggest they think of us as, inferior. Not evil, just lesser beings who need to be taken care of." "Maybe that's just how they see all younger civilizations," Lisa replied. "They said they've been traveling the galaxy for thousands of years. Maybe. But I keep finding words that translate to things like livestock and preserve when they talk about protecting humans." Before Lisa could respond, alarms started sounding throughout the facility. On every screen, the same message appeared. In bright red letters, "Alien construction detected." Outside, the Cathara ships were glowing brighter than ever. Beams of energy stretched between them, forming a web of light that slowly expanded to surround the entire planet. The aliens were building their shield, just as they had promised. Lisa watched the construction through the facility's telescopes. The energy barrier was beautiful, creating aurora-like displays in the atmosphere. But as she watched, she noticed something that made her uncomfortable. The barrier was not just designed to keep things out. It was also designed to keep things in. President Brooks received hourly reports from observatories around the world. The alien shield was nearly complete. It would protect Earth from the mysterious devourers, but it would also make it impossible for human spacecraft to leave Earth's orbit. When she asked the Cathara about this, their response was polite but firm. Young civilizations often make dangerous decisions when faced with cosmic threats. The shield will protect you not only from external enemies but also from your own potentially harmful actions. Trust us. We know what is best. As the first day of alien protection ended, most humans felt safe and grateful. The Cathara had saved them from a terrible fate, but a few people like Lisa Carter and Alex Morgan wondered about the beings who had appointed themselves as Earth's guardians. The aliens had come to shield Earth from danger, but some humans were beginning to ask a very important question. From what exactly did Earth need to be protected? 3 weeks had passed since the Cathara arrived. The world had settled into a strange new normal. People went to work, children went to school, and life continued much as it always had. But some things had changed in ways that made certain people uncomfortable. General Roy Thompson stood in the Pentagon's war room, studying reports from military bases around the world. As the head of Global Defense Coordination, he was responsible for monitoring any threats to Earth's security. The problem was that the biggest potential threat was now floating directly above his head. "Sir, we have another incident to report," said Colonel Martinez, his aide. "What happened this time?" "The Japanese sent a research satellite toward the edge of the barrier. It was supposed to study the alien shield technology, but when it got within 50 miles of the barrier, it just turned around." General Thompson frowned. "Turned around how?" "The satellite's guidance systems were overridden. It received new instructions that sent it back to Earth orbit. The Japanese say they never sent those instructions." This was the 5th time something like this had happened. Every country that tried to send spacecraft beyond Earth's orbit found their missions quietly redirected. The Cathara always had polite explanations. The spacecraft might interfere with the shield. The barrier was delicate and could be damaged by human technology. It was all for Earth's protection. But General Thompson had been a soldier for 30 years. He knew the difference between protection and imprisonment. Dr. Lisa Carter was having the same uncomfortable thoughts. She spent her days analyzing the signals coming from the Cathara ships, and what she found troubled her more each day. "Alex, look at this," she said to Dr. Morgan, who had become her closest partner in studying the aliens. "I've been going through the data from their first broadcast. Remember when they showed us images of planets destroyed by the Devourers? Of course. Those images were horrifying. I've been checking those images against our star charts. Look at this planet here." Lisa pointed to her computer screen. "The Cathara said this was a world in the Vega system, destroyed 200 years ago." Alex leaned closer to look at the data. "What's wrong with it?" "The problem is that the star they show in the background of this image is not Vega. It's not even close to Vega. And the planetary formation they show is impossible. No solar system could have planets arranged like that." Alex stared at the screen. "Are you saying they faked the images?" "I'm saying the images show things that could never exist in real space. Either their technology creates impossible illusions, or they're lying to us about something very important." While Lisa and Alex were discovering problems with the alien, evidence Dr. Nina Scott was noticing changes in Earth's environment. As a marine biologist working with the National Oceanic Institute, she spent her time monitoring the health of Earth's oceans. "The water temperature is rising," she told her research team during their weekly meeting. "It's a small increase, but it's happening everywhere. The Arctic, the Pacific, the Atlantic. Every major body of water on Earth is getting warmer." "Could it be related to the alien shield?" asked her assistant, Dr. Kevin Liu. "That's what worries me. The Cathara said their barrier would protect us from harmful radiation, but if that were true, the planet should be getting cooler, not warmer. Something about their shield is having the opposite effect." Nina had tried to contact the Cathara about this problem, but their responses were always vague. They assured her that all changes were temporary and part of the protection process. But Nina had been studying Earth's climate for 15 years, and she knew that nothing about this was normal. Captain Pete Davis was experiencing the aliens' control more directly than anyone else. As the commander of the space station Harmony, he had the best view of the Cathara ships and their activities. "Mission Control, we're seeing unusual activity from the alien vessels," he reported during his daily communication with Earth. "They're sending scanning beams across the planet's surface. The beams seem to be mapping something." "What kind of mapping?" asked the voice from Houston. "It looks like they're cataloging population centers, natural resources, and agricultural areas. They spend a lot of time scanning farmland and cities, less time on deserts and mountains." Pete had tried to get closer to the alien ships to study them better, but every time he attempted to maneuver the station toward them, his systems would malfunction. Life support would flicker, navigation would fail, or communications would cut out. The problems always stopped as soon as he moved away from the alien vessels. It was becoming clear that the Cathara did not want humans getting too close to their operations. On Earth, some people were beginning to organize against what they saw as an alien occupation. Maria Santos had been a CIA field operative for 12 years before retiring to teach at a small college in Colorado. When the aliens arrived, her old instincts told her that something was very wrong. She began meeting with other former intelligence officers, military personnel, and scientists who shared her concerns. They called themselves the Free Earth Network, and they communicated through encrypted channels that they hoped the aliens could not monitor. "We need to document everything," Maria told the group during one of their secret meetings. "Every time they interfere with our technology, every change in the environment, every lie in their statements, we need proof that these aliens are not what they claim to be." Ben Clark, a computer expert who had worked for the National Security Agency, was helping Maria collect evidence. "I've been analyzing their translation software," he said. "The program they gave us is not just translating our words, it's also scanning our computer systems and copying our data." "What kind of data?" "Everything. Military databases, population records, industrial capacity, food production statistics. They're learning everything about how human civilization works." The Free Earth Network was small, but it was growing. People around the world were beginning to notice that the alien protection felt more like alien control with each passing day. Dr. Alex Morgan made a breakthrough that changed everything. He had been studying the Cathara language for weeks, learning to understand their communications without using their translation software. What he discovered made him sick to his stomach. "Lisa, you need to see this," he said, rushing into her laboratory with a stack of papers covered in alien symbols. "What did you find?" "I've been listening to the communications between the Cathara ships. They don't know that I can understand their language without their translator. Listen to this." Alex played a recording of alien voices speaking in their musical language. Then he provided his own translation. "The breeding stock is adapting well to containment. Population levels remain stable. Resource consumption is within acceptable parameters. The harvest preparation can begin once the subjects have been fully conditioned." Lisa felt her blood turn cold. "Breeding stock? Harvest? It gets worse. They're not talking about protecting us from devourers. They're talking about us as if we're animals in a zoo. Or worse, livestock being prepared for slaughter." The two scientists stared at each other in horror. The aliens had not come to save humanity. They had come to farm it. That evening, Lisa and Alex tried to contact General Thompson, President Brooks, and anyone else who might listen to their discovery. But they found that their communications were being blocked. Phone calls would not connect. Emails bounced back as undeliverable. Even text messages disappeared before they could be sent. The Cathara were monitoring all human communications. They knew that some humans were beginning to understand the truth. The next morning, the alien broadcast to Earth carried a new message. The voice was still calm and friendly, but there was something different about it, something that sounded almost like a warning. "People of Earth, we have detected some confusion and fear among your population. This is natural when facing cosmic threats. However, we must remind you that questioning our protection methods could be dangerous. Your safety depends on your cooperation with our guidance. Some of your scientists and military leaders have been conducting activities that could interfere with the shield protecting your world. These activities must stop immediately. Trust in our wisdom is essential for your survival. We understand that freedom is important to your species, but sometimes true freedom can only exist within proper boundaries. The boundaries we have established are for your own good." General Thompson heard this broadcast from his office in the Pentagon. He looked up at the ceiling, knowing that somewhere above the clouds, alien ships were watching every move humans made. For the first time, since the arrival, he began to understand what some of his more suspicious colleagues had been trying to tell him. The Cathara had not come to protect Earth from some distant threat. They had come to protect Earth from something much closer to home. They had come to protect Earth from the humans who lived on it. The question that had seemed innocent 3 weeks ago now carried a much darker meaning. The aliens had come to shield Earth, and humans had asked from what? Now General Thompson was beginning to fear that the answer was simple and terrifying: from us. Katie Bell was not a professional scientist. She was a high school teacher who loved looking at stars in her backyard. Her telescope was small and old, but it was good enough to see the alien ships clearly on most nights. She had been watching them for weeks, taking pictures and making notes like a hobby. On this particular night, Katie was filming the ships with her camera when she noticed something strange. One of the smaller alien vessels had moved away from the main formation and was heading toward the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. She followed it with her telescope, curious about what it might be doing. What she saw made her gasp and nearly drop her camera. The alien ship was using some kind of energy beam to break apart asteroids. But it was not destroying them. It was reshaping them. The broken pieces of rock and metal were being formed into long, rectangular structures that looked like nothing Katie had ever seen before. She watched for 2 hours as the aliens built what appeared to be enormous cages or pens in space. The structures were massive, each one large enough to hold thousands of people. They were being arranged in neat rows like a giant farm floating in the darkness. Katie's hands were shaking as she uploaded her video to the internet. She posted it on every social media platform she could think of with a simple message. The aliens are building something in space. I think we're all in terrible danger. Within hours, the video had been shared millions of times. People around the world were watching Katie's footage and asking the same frightening questions. What were the aliens building? Why did it look like a prison? And why were they doing it in secret? The government tried to remove the video, but it was too late. Copies had been made and shared faster than anyone could delete them. For the first time since the aliens arrived, ordinary people were seeing evidence that their protectors might have other plans. Dr. Lisa Carter was in her laboratory when the video appeared on her computer screen. She watched it 3 times, feeling sick to her stomach. The structures Katie had filmed matched perfectly with what Alex had discovered in the alien communications. They're not just planning to harvest us, Lisa said to Alex, who was staring at the same video. They're building the facilities to do it. Alex nodded grimly. And now everyone knows about it. The question is, what will the Cathara do when they realize their secret is out? They did not have to wait long for an answer. The alien response came within 6 hours of Katie's video going viral. But it was not the calm, friendly voice that had been speaking to humanity for weeks. This voice was cold and commanding. People of Earth, you have accessed information that was not intended for your knowledge. This information is dangerous and could cause panic that would interfere with your protection. The individual who recorded this unauthorized surveillance will be relocated for counseling and safety. All copies of this recording must be destroyed immediately. Failure to comply will result in additional protective measures. Commander Jake Sullivan was in the Pentagon when the announcement came through. He looked around the room at the other military leaders, all of whom were thinking the same thing. The aliens had just threatened a civilian for taking pictures of their activities. "Sir," said Colonel Martinez, "we're getting reports from around the world. The aliens are moving toward populated areas. They're not just hovering anymore, they're coming down." Jake watched the satellite feeds on the main screen. The massive alien ships were descending from orbit, positioning themselves directly over major cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. Every major population center was now under the shadow of a Cathara vessel. "What about the girl who made the video?" Jake asked. "Katie Bell. She lives in a small town in Colorado. We've lost contact with her." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens had taken Katie Bell just as they had promised. The message was clear. Anyone who exposed their activities would disappear. President Helen Brooks was in an emergency, meeting with world leaders when the reports started coming in. Cities around the globe were experiencing the same thing. The alien ships were no longer content to watch from a distance. They were taking direct control. "Madam President," said her chief of staff, "we're receiving reports that the aliens are jamming all satellite communications. Internet access is being restricted. Phone networks are failing. They're cutting off our ability to communicate with each other. What about our military communications? Still working, but barely. They're allowing us to talk to each other, but only about approved topics. Any discussion of resistance or the alien activities is being blocked." President Brooks looked out the window of the White House. The alien ship above Washington was lower, now close enough that she could see details of its crystalline surface. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Get me a secure line to the Cathara," she ordered. "I want to speak to whoever is in charge." The conversation that followed was unlike any diplomatic exchange in human history. The alien voice that responded to President Brooks was no longer pretending to be friendly. "Your species has demonstrated an inability to accept necessary guidance," the voice said. You question our methods and resist our protection. This behavior is counterproductive and must be corrected. We're not children, President Brooks replied, trying to keep her voice steady. We have the right to know what you're doing to our world. Rights are a luxury that can only exist in safety. Your world is not safe. Your species is not safe. We are the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. Your cooperation is not optional. And if we refuse to cooperate? There was a long pause before the alien responded. Then we will be forced to take more direct measures to ensure your protection. Some freedoms must be sacrificed for the greater good. The line went dead, leaving President Brooks staring at a silent phone. The message was clear. Humanity could cooperate with the aliens, or the aliens would force them to cooperate. Dr. Nina Scott was at her research station when the ocean temperatures suddenly spiked. In the space of 4 hours, the average temperature of Earth's oceans rose by 3 degrees. It was an impossible change that should have taken decades to occur naturally. Something is happening to the planet, she told her team. The alien shield is not protecting us from anything. It's changing our environment on purpose. Her assistant, Dr. Liu, was monitoring seismic sensors around the Pacific. Nina, look at this. We're detecting massive energy discharges from the ocean floor. The aliens are doing something to the planet's core. Nina realized with growing horror that the Cathara were not just planning to harvest humanity. They were preparing Earth itself for something. The rising temperatures, the environmental changes, the energy discharges, it was all part of a larger plan to transform the planet. Captain Pete Davis was watching all of this unfold from his position on the space station. He had the best view of the alien operations, and what he saw made him understand how desperate the situation had become. Houston, the alien ships are deploying smaller vessels, he reported. Hundreds of them. They're heading toward Earth's surface. What's their destination? Everywhere. They're landing in every major city, every military base, every government facility. It looks like they're beginning some kind of occupation. Pete tried to maneuver his station to get a better view, but this time the alien interference was stronger than ever. His life support systems shut down completely, forcing him to make an emergency return to Earth. The message was clear. The time for observation was over. The aliens were taking direct control of Earth. On the surface, people were beginning to see the true face of their protectors. The small alien vessels that landed in cities were not carrying diplomats or scientists. They were carrying soldiers. The Cathara ground forces were unlike anything in human imagination. They were tall, graceful, beings that moved like dancers, but their intentions were clearly hostile. They established control zones around government buildings, military bases, and communication centers. Anyone who tried to resist was quickly subdued by weapons that seemed to drain the strength from human bodies. The aliens did not kill. They simply made it impossible for humans to fight back. Maria Santos and the Free Earth Network tried to organize resistance, but their communications were completely blocked. The aliens had cut off every method humans had of coordinating with each other. They've been planning this from the beginning, Maria told Ben Clark during one of their last meetings before the communication blackout. The protection story was just a way to get us to lower our guard. What do we do now? Ben asked. We survive, we adapt, and we find a way to fight back. But as the alien occupation spread across the globe, fighting back seemed impossible. The Cathara had superior technology, complete control of Earth's communications, and a thorough understanding of human civilization. Dr. Lisa Carter and Alex Morgan were arrested at their laboratory while trying to broadcast the truth about the alien language translations. As they were led away by the graceful alien soldiers, Lisa looked up at the ships hovering over every city and realized the full scope of what had happened. The aliens had not come to shield Earth from the Devourers. They were the Devourers. They had simply used a different method than the violent destruction shown in their false images. The world had changed overnight. Cities that had bustled with life just days before now moved under the watchful eyes of alien guards. The Cathara soldiers stood at every street corner, their tall forms graceful but menacing. They did not speak to humans unless giving orders. They did not explain their actions. They simply controlled. But the Cathara had made one critical mistake. They had studied human technology, human governments, and human military forces. They had learned about human fear and human cooperation. But they had never bothered to study human stubbornness. Dr. Nina Scott was the first to discover their weakness, though she did not realize it at the time. She was locked in her laboratory, forbidden from leaving by the alien guards outside her door. But she still had access to her equipment, and she was still angry about what the aliens were doing to Earth's oceans. If they want to heat up our planet, I'm going to find out exactly how they're doing it, she muttered to herself as she worked. Nina had been studying the energy patterns coming from the alien ships for hours when she noticed something interesting. The aliens were using a very specific type of electromagnetic frequency to control their technology. It was unlike anything humans had ever used, but it followed certain patterns that reminded her of earthquake detection equipment. Kevin, she called to her assistant who was trapped in the same building. Remember that earthquake sensor we were testing last month? The one that kept malfunctioning because of electromagnetic interference? Dr. Liu looked up from his own work. The one that kept shorting out whenever we tested it near radio equipment? Exactly. What if we reversed the process? What if instead of the equipment being damaged by electromagnetic pulses, we used the equipment to create electromagnetic pulses? Kevin stared at her. You want to make an EMP device out of earthquake sensors? Not just one device. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The aliens are using electromagnetic control for everything, their ships, their weapons, their communication systems. If we could create a powerful enough electromagnetic pulse, we might be able to disrupt their technology. It was a desperate idea, but it was the first real hope either scientist had felt in days. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Carter had discovered something equally important during her imprisonment. The aliens had locked her in a government facility with other scientists and military officers. They assumed that keeping the humans together would make them easier to control. Instead, it had created the perfect opportunity for collaboration. The alien technology has a fatal flaw, Lisa explained to the group of prisoners. They're so advanced that they've forgotten how to deal with primitive solutions. Their systems are designed to counter sophisticated attacks, not simple ones. General Thompson, who had been captured during the initial occupation, leaned forward to listen. What kind of simple solutions? Think about it. Their shields can stop our most advanced missiles. Their weapons can disable our best aircraft. But what about things they would never expect? What about using our old technology in ways they've never seen? Engineer Tony Hayes, who had been working on satellite systems before his capture, understood immediately. You're talking about using our infrastructure as a weapon, radio towers, power plants, communication networks. Exactly. The aliens have been so focused on stopping our military that they've ignored our civilian technology. They don't see radio stations and television broadcasts as threats. But what if we could connect all of those systems together? The plan that emerged from their discussions was ambitious and dangerous. They would try to link together every radio telescope, every broadcasting station, every nuclear power plant, and every communication tower on Earth. If they could coordinate all of these systems to work together, they might be able to create an electromagnetic pulse powerful enough to damage the alien technology. But first, they had to find a way to communicate with the outside world. Maria Santos had been hiding in the mountains of Colorado since the occupation began. The Free Earth network had scattered when the aliens took control of the cities, but they had not given up. They had simply adapted to working in smaller, more secretive groups. The aliens made a mistake, Maria told the group of resistance fighters gathered in an abandoned mine. They assumed that humans would give up once they showed their superior force. They don't understand that some of us become more dangerous when we're cornered. Ben Clark had managed to escape the city with some of his computer equipment. I've been monitoring their communications, he said. The aliens are overconfident. They think they have complete control. They're not expecting any serious resistance. Then let's give them something they're not expecting, Maria replied. The resistance began with small acts of sabotage. They cut power lines leading to alien installations. They interfered with the electromagnetic frequencies the aliens used for communication. They rescued captured humans and helped them escape to hidden camps in remote areas. Each act of resistance was small and seemingly insignificant, but together, they began to create problems for the alien occupation forces. Captain Pete Davis had crash-landed his space station in the Nevada desert when the aliens finally shut down his life support systems. He was picked up by a resistance group led by a former Air Force pilot named Colonel Sarah Wright. "We've been watching the alien ships from the ground," Sarah told Pete as they drove through the desert. "We think we found a weakness." "What kind of weakness?" "Their command ship. The biggest one, hovering over the Atlantic Ocean. All of the other ships seem to receive their orders from that one. If we could take it out, or even just disrupt its communications, it might create chaos in their fleet." Pete looked at the small group of resistance fighters in the truck. They had old weapons, stolen vehicles, and no real military equipment. "You want to attack an alien mothership with this?" "Not attack it directly. We want to use it as a target for the electromagnetic pulse that Dr. Carter and her team are planning. But we need someone who understands space operations to help us coordinate the timing." Pete realized that despite everything that had happened, despite all of the alien technology and superior firepower, the fight was far from over. Humans were doing what they had always done when faced with impossible odds. They were adapting, improvising, and refusing to give up. The coordination of the resistance took weeks. Using hidden radio equipment and coded messages, the scattered groups of humans began to work together. Scientists in hidden laboratories worked to build EMP devices. Engineers in secret facilities modified power plants and communication towers. Military units that had escaped capture began coordinating simultaneous attacks. The aliens noticed the increased resistance activity, but they misunderstood what it meant. They saw scattered attacks and random sabotage. They did not recognize the careful coordination behind the chaos. Dr. Nina Scott and her team had successfully built their first working EMP device using modified earthquake sensors. When they tested it on a small alien communication relay, the device overloaded and shut down for several hours. "It works," Nina reported to the Resistance Network. "We can disrupt their technology, but we need bigger devices to affect their main ships." Tony Hayes had been working with power plant operators around the world, preparing to overload entire electrical grids in a coordinated burst. "We can create massive electromagnetic pulses using the power infrastructure," he reported. "But we'll only get one chance. Once we do this, they'll know what we're planning." The plan was set for a global coordinated attack. Every resistance cell, every hidden scientist, every escaped military unit would strike at the same moment. The goal was not to destroy the alien ships, but to disrupt them long enough for humanity to break free of their control. Captain Pete Davis led a desperate mission to get close to the alien command ship. Using a retrofitted civilian aircraft loaded with every EMP device the Resistance could build, he and a small team of volunteers flew directly toward the massive alien vessel, floating over the Atlantic. The alien defenses were formidable. Energy beams reached out to disable their engines. Force fields tried to push their aircraft away, but Pete had learned something important during his weeks in space. The aliens were not used to dealing with opponents who were willing to sacrifice everything for a chance at freedom. "This is Raven Flight," Pete broadcast to resistance forces around the world. "We're beginning our attack run. Activate all EMP devices on my signal." The small aircraft flew straight into the alien ship's defensive systems. Alarms blared in the cockpit as their equipment failed one by one, but they had gotten close enough. "All stations, this is Raven Flight. Execute, execute, execute." Around the world, the coordinated attack began. Nuclear power plants overloaded their electrical systems. Radio telescopes focused their energy into tight beams. Television and radio stations boosted their signals to maximum power. Thousands of small EMP devices activated simultaneously. The combined electromagnetic pulse was like nothing Earth had ever produced. It swept across the planet in a wave of invisible energy, striking every alien ship and facility at the same moment. The results were immediate and dramatic. Alien ships flickered and went dark. Their graceful movements became erratic as their control systems failed. Several smaller vessels actually fell from the sky. The electromagnetic pulse had changed everything. For the first time since their arrival, the Cathara were not in complete control. Their ships floated in space like wounded giants, many of their systems dark and silent. But more importantly, their perception of humanity had changed from confident dismissal to genuine concern. Dr. Alex Morgan was monitoring alien communications from a hidden facility when he intercepted a conversation that made him realize how badly the aliens had misjudged their situation. "The subjects are exhibiting unprecedented resistance behaviors," one alien voice said to another. "In 3,000 years of galactic harvesting, we have never encountered a species that responds to superior force with increased aggression." "Perhaps we underestimated their development level," replied another voice. "Most civilizations at this technological stage submit when presented with overwhelming evidence of our superiority. This species appears to become more dangerous when threatened. They use their primitive technology in ways we did not anticipate. Our behavioral models may be completely incorrect." Alex realized that the Cathara had made a fundamental error. They had studied humanity like scientists studying laboratory animals, but they had never understood what made humans truly dangerous. They had prepared for fear, panic, and submission. They had not prepared for anger, creativity, and stubborn determination. Commander Jake Sullivan was coordinating the global resistance from a mobile command center hidden in the Rocky Mountains. Reports were coming in from around the world, and what he heard filled him with a mixture of hope and determination. "Sir, we're getting confirmations from resistance cells on every continent," reported Colonel Martinez. "The EMP attack damaged approximately 60% of the alien fleet. Their smaller ships are mostly disabled, but the large command vessels are still operational. What about their ground forces?" "That's the interesting part. Without constant communication from their ships, the alien soldiers are having trouble coordinating. They're still dangerous, but they're acting more like individual units than a unified army." Jake studied the tactical displays on his screens. The aliens had superior technology, but they seemed to depend heavily on centralized command and control. When that system was disrupted, they became vulnerable in ways they had not expected. "Colonel, I want you to coordinate with Dr. Carter's team. If we can disrupt their communications again at the right moment, we might be able to turn this war around." Dr. Lisa Carter had been working around the clock to understand the alien technology they had captured during the EMP attack. Several small Cathara vessels had crashed intact, giving human scientists their first chance to study alien systems up close. "Tony, look at this," Lisa said to engineer Tony Hayes, who was helping her analyze the alien equipment. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly specialized. Every system is designed to work perfectly with every other system. There's no redundancy, no backup plans." "What does that mean for us?" "It means they've never had to design technology that can function when damaged. Their ships either work perfectly or they don't work at all. But our technology is different. Our equipment is designed to break down and keep working anyway." Tony understood immediately. "You're saying we can build things that work even when they're partially destroyed, but they can't." "Exactly. And there's something else. I think we can use their own shield technology against them." Lisa had discovered that the energy barrier the aliens had built around Earth was more than just a prison. It was also a massive antenna system that amplified electromagnetic signals. If they could find a way to reverse the polarity of the shield, they could turn it into the largest EMP device ever created. "We would need to get control of their main command ship," Lisa explained. "The one floating over the Atlantic. That's where the shield is being controlled from. How do we capture something that big?" "We don't capture it. We use it." Meanwhile, Dr. Nina Scott had made a discovery that would prove crucial to the final battle. She had been studying the changes the aliens had made to Earth's environment and realized that they had made their own situation more precarious. The heating of the oceans wasn't just preparation for harvesting humans, she explained to the resistance leadership. They were changing Earth's magnetic field, but the changes they made have created instabilities in their own technology. What kind of instabilities? Their ships use the planet's magnetic field for power and navigation. But the changes they made mean that certain types of electromagnetic pulses can cascade through their entire fleet. If we hit them at exactly the right frequency, we could overload every alien ship at once. The plan that emerged from these discoveries was audacious and dangerous. The Resistance would launch a coordinated attack on the alien command ship, not to destroy it, but to capture its shield control systems. Then they would use the Earth-spanning barrier as a massive weapon against the entire alien fleet. Captain Pete Davis had survived his previous mission and volunteered to lead the assault on the command ship. "We'll need to get inside their main vessel," he told the planning committee. "That means flying through their defenses and boarding them directly." "That's suicide," Maria Santos pointed out. "Maybe, but it's the only way to get access to their control systems. And besides, they won't be expecting a direct assault. They're used to fighting enemies who retreat when faced with superior firepower." "What makes you think we won't retreat?" Pete smiled grimly. "Because we're human. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten." The final assault began at dawn on a clear spring morning. Resistance forces around the world launched simultaneous attacks on alien positions, drawing their attention away from the main target. It looked like another desperate, doomed human assault. But this time was different. This time the humans had a plan that the aliens could not anticipate, because it was based on something the Cathara had never encountered before: the willingness to sacrifice everything for the possibility of freedom. Pete led a fleet of modified aircraft toward the alien command ship. The vessels were old, patched together from civilian and military parts and loaded with every piece of human technology that might be useful. They looked like junk compared to the elegant alien ships, but they had one crucial advantage: they were expendable. The alien defenses opened fire as soon as the human fleet came within range. Energy beams lanced out to disable the attacking aircraft. Force fields pushed against them. Gravity weapons tried to pull them off course. But for every human ship that was destroyed, 2 more took its place. The aliens found themselves facing an enemy that treated loss as an acceptable cost of victory. They had never fought against opponents who were willing to die for their cause. Pete's aircraft was hit multiple times as it approached the command ship, but it kept flying. "All units, remember the mission," he broadcast. "We're not trying to win, we're trying to get close enough to matter." His ship crashed directly into the side of the alien vessel, tearing a hole in its crystalline hull. Through that hole, human soldiers poured into the alien ship like an infection the Cathara could not cure. The fighting inside the command ship was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Graceful alien soldiers with energy weapons faced desperate human fighters with projectile guns and explosive devices. The aliens were more advanced, but the humans were more vicious. Dr. Lisa Carter was part of the boarding team, carrying the modified equipment needed to reverse the shield polarity. She fought her way through alien corridors with a team of soldiers and scientists, all of them knowing that they probably would not survive the mission. "There!" she shouted, pointing to a massive control room filled with alien technology. "That's where they're controlling the shield." The team fought their way into the control room, suffering heavy casualties but eventually overwhelming the alien defenders. Lisa began connecting her equipment to the alien systems, her hands shaking as energy weapons fired around her. "How long do you need?" shouted Captain Davis, who was coordinating the defense of the control room. 2 minutes, Lisa replied. "Maybe 3. You've got it." The battle for the control room lasted exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds. When it was over, half the human assault team was dead or wounded, but Lisa had succeeded in reversing the shield polarity. Around the Earth, the massive energy barrier that had been designed to imprison humanity suddenly became humanity's greatest weapon. The electromagnetic pulse that erupted from the shield was beyond anything the planet had ever experienced. Every alien ship within the solar system was hit simultaneously. Their advanced technology, so perfectly integrated and specialized, could not cope with the massive overload. One by one, the elegant Cathara vessels went dark and began falling toward Earth. But the aliens had one final surprise. As their ships failed, they activated a last resort weapon designed to destroy any world that successfully resisted them. "All human forces, this is Commander Sullivan." Jake's voice came over the emergency channels. "The aliens are trying to overload our sun. If they succeed, they'll turn our star into a supernova. We have maybe 10 minutes before the process becomes irreversible. Dr. Nina Scott, monitoring the situation from her laboratory, realized what the aliens were doing. They're using the same technology they use to heat our oceans.